Take a familiar illustration that we've talked about before, Gideon and the fleece, which sometimes is put under the heading of faith, you see. I read the Bible as a code book of deeds to be done, sins to be shunned. I need faith, okay? Some illustrations of faith. Gideon had so much faith that he asked God for a wet fleece, and he had enough faith to ask for a dry fleece. I mean, that takes faith. Noah, read the story. An angel had come to Gideon and asked him to do something in God's name. And that night, Gideon got to thinking about it. And those were difficult times in Israel. Read the book of Judges to see how difficult they were. There was very little faith at all. Gideon's faith wasn't that good. He had concubines, he had idols, but he was one man who could listen at least a little to God. And so it's understandable that night he began to feel uncertain. And here, down through the corridors of space, there comes to God, wherever he is at the center of things, the plaintive request, "Dear God, I got the message this morning, but I'm feeling so uncertain tonight. If you could just give me a sign in the morning, I'd feel so much more sure. And the one I thought of is, if you could give me a wet fleece on the dry ground, then I'd know." Now, as you know God, what would he do? Would he say, "Look, I sent an angel to the man. That's enough. I expect some faith around here"? No, God, as it were, said to an angel, "You know what difficult times these are." And the angels lived through the experiences recorded in the book of Judges when Levites were cutting up women. You remember the awful stories? Every man doing that which is right in his own eyes. Look at God's people behaving like this in Palestine. Wonderful to have a man like Gideon. But he needed a lot of help. And the Lord said, Gideon needs what he's asked for. You go down and give him a wet fleece on the dry ground. But the next night there comes the plaintive request once again. "Dear God, I got up and the fleece was wet and the ground was dry, and I got to thinking. I got up a little later than I expected and the sun was up, and naturally the fleece would hold the moisture longer than the ground would, and maybe you didn't give me a sign. So God, could you reverse that tomorrow morning? Please, a dry fleece on the wet ground." And our gracious Lord said to an angel, "You go down there and give him a dry fleece on the wet ground. He needs it." Who looks good in the story, Gideon or God? But the Bible is read as a record of stories about Gideons and Samsons and Davids and all the rest. Whereas the hero of the Bible is God. The truth is about God. The issue in the great controversy is about God. It means reading the same book, but with even more appreciation and more concern for every detail, and reading it this way, being able to do what Ellen White recommended, viewing every word and every line, how does she say it, every verse of Scripture as of value. We don't need to leave any of it out from cover to cover. It's all part of the record of the circumstances under which God chose to reveal himself, without which he never could have won the great controversy.